Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to tonight's workshop, HawkTank workshop. We're obviously really excited to have you. Thank you for taking a break from your snowdown activities. I know that was probably really challenging for you, but we're glad you're all here. Thank you to the people that are watching online. We really appreciate that too. So, tonight we are super lucky to have Professor Eric Prosser with us tonight. Professor Prosser has a law degree, practiced law for a number of years, and he is our current patent and trademark librarian? Copyright librarian at Reed Library. Kind of how we want to structure tonight is, typically we do about 2-hour sessions. Tonight we'll probably do about an hour session. Professor Prosser will hang out and probably answer any final questions you may have. I've asked Professor Prosser to really give us like a high-level overview, and really with the focus on where you can access information and details that are pertinent to whatever your sort of challenges or issues are. For this evening, we don't have the time to drill down on specific trademark law, things of that nature, but Professor Prosser will give you kind of where to look and those resources that are available, and I'll make him. I'm sure he would offer this at the end, but I'm going to sort of preempt it. And he is available in the Reed Library for any other sort of additional discussions or chats about your business idea. So, without further ado, Eric?
Right on. Thanks very much. Okay, so let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you like a really condensed view of legal issues that surround businesses. I mean, honestly, if you are actually thinking about an actual business, you will want to consult with a legal professional, okay? What I'm giving you tonight is not legal advice, although it happens to have a lot to do with legal advice. It is not legal advice. I'm just kind of giving you things that need to be in your mind when you're going to be developing your businesses and developing your business plan. 3 main things we're going to talk about tonight is kind of form of the business. So how should you organize? Should you be a partnership? Should you be a corporation? We'll talk about that a little bit. Talk a little bit about intellectual property. Intellectual property is usually one of the first types of property that any business has. They're ideas, right? They're concepts. They're things that aren't tangible. We can't hold them in our hands yet. That's when we start making products. And then we'll talk about how you can manage your risk. All right, because that's what we like to do as business people. We don't really like a lot of risk. I mean, there's opportunity in risk, but if we can manage it in our favor, we are very much in favor of that. So first of all, let's talk about some of the forms of businesses that we can have. There are a number of types of ways to organize a business. I've just listed a few of the most popular ones up here.
Can you just share, what do you mean forms of business and organizing business?
Yeah, so the form of your business is how you are going to exist as a business, okay? You know, theoretically, if we just go out and we start, working for ourselves, we've selected the form of our business as what's called a sole proprietorship, right? We work on our own. The money we earn is taxed to us individually. But the law gives us other options on how we can structure a business. And reasons why you might want to figure out what your business structure is going to be is, for one reason, you may have people who want to invest in your business, but you don't want them to have any part of the management. Okay? We need to have a structure in place where we can insulate maybe some investors from management decisions. Or maybe you're getting into a type of business where you might expect there to be significant risk for personal liability. Because remember, if you're in business for yourself and you screw something up and you get sued, suddenly everything you've earned and worked for is going to be at risk. But we can do things like through limited partnerships, through corporations, through limited liability companies, which I'll talk about here in a minute. We can actually restrict that risk. We can limit our liability so that if there's a business issue, it doesn't end up affecting our personal interests or maybe other business interests as well. Okay? So a few things we have up here. I don't have listed what's called a sole proprietorship because it's fairly simple. If you are in business for yourself and you are just working on your own, you are a sole proprietor. That's it, period. Okay? If you start to get other people in the business who share in the ownership, who share in those managerial decisions, you are not a sole proprietorship anymore. That's where we get into partnerships, all right? Two main types of partnerships are what we call general and limited. A general partnership, fairly simple. It's you and at least one other person. You are sharing in the expenses of the business. You are sharing in the profits of the business. You are sharing in the risk of the business, right? If you have a general partnership, one of the big reasons we talk about businesses too, or business formations, business organizations, sorry, is that taxes come into play, all right? If you're a general partnership, any income you make, that's going to your personal income, all right? An advantage of that, though, is any losses you incur or expenses you incur, you can write off against your personal income, all right? I always recommend, if you are going to have a general partnership, that you have some type of written partnership agreement that spells out responsibilities, that spells out decision-making, that spells out profit sharing, okay? And expense sharing. You don't have to have that for a general partnership, but I highly recommend it, okay? Now there's something also called a limited partnership. And if you have a limited partnership, this always requires paperwork, okay? A limited partnership allows you to bring people into a business who are going to invest in the business but are not going to participate in managerial decisions, right? That doesn't mean they can't work for the business, but what that means is they can't have any say on strategic direction. Great place to use a limited partnership. If you happen to be lucky enough who have parents who would like to invest in your business, but you have no desire at all to have them engage in the management of the business, make your parents limited partners, okay? They can put the money in, they can invest it in you, they can get profit out, they can get their, their investment back, but they don't get to participate in the management. The trade-off, if there's any kind of business calamity, they're not going to be liable for anything more than their original investment. So if they give you $50,000 and you end up getting sued for some reason for $3 million, the worst your parents are ever going to lose is that original $50,000, okay? But it's very key if you have limited partners that they don't participate in management. Because if they do that, they're going to lose that protection of limited liability, all right? Other forms of business that we have, you've probably all heard of corporations. I have two types listed up there, S Corps and C Corps. All those letters mean is that's the subchapter of the Internal Revenue Service Regulation Code, okay? A C Corp is what we traditionally think of as a publicly traded corporation, okay? When you have a corporation is what we call a separate legal entity. It's almost like you've created another person. The law treats a corporation as if it were a person, okay? That means a corporation, when it makes income, it's going to be taxed on that income. And then when it distributes that income to its shareholders or through, let's say, salary to its employees, is going to be taxed again, okay? There's some double taxation that we have involved in corporations, all right? Now that can cost you some money, but the thing is, if you've got an experienced tax attorney or an experienced accountant who's used to dealing with corporations, there are a lot of sweet spots in the law for corporations in terms of saving money on taxes, okay? A few years ago, GE was one of the largest corporations in the United States. It paid $0 in federal income tax. Why? Because they paid a lot of tax attorneys a lot of money to figure out how to save them that tax liability. Right? Absolutely nothing wrong with it from a legal standpoint, but that's one of the advantages you can get from a corporation. An S Corp is what we often call a closely held corporation. They're great options for small businesses, okay? There's a maximum number of shareholders that's possible, 75. And an advantage to an S Corp is that unlike a C Corp where you're going to get taxed separately as the corporation, as an S Corp you can actually elect to have that taxation go individually on your personal tax return. Now there's some other requirements in there about you're not allowed to hoard money in the corporation. Things have to be redistributed or reinvested within 3 years of being earned. But it's a really attractive option if you're looking at creating a small business that you hope to sell easily in the future. Okay? Another option, it's a more kind of recent development in the law, and by recent now I mean like 25 years, because that's kind of the age I'm at. But a limited liability company actually kind of gives you the ease of creation of a partnership with the tax advantages of a corporation. It usually does not require as much capital upfront to start as a corporation does in terms of hiring an attorney, doing all the legal paperwork. You'll still want an attorney for the LLC, but it's nowhere near as formal as creating a corporation. All right. LLCs are nice. They do give you that tax flexibility. You can actually elect at the beginning if they're going to be taxed separately or it's going to be that pass-through taxation to your individual or personal income tax. Okay? But these are kind of the big ways to think about it, or the big concepts in terms of how to organize your company. And the thing is, if you are going to make a decision, again, I'd recommend go talk to a business attorney, okay? Because they will get into the specifics of what your specific business is, what the risks that you face, because that's going to kind of determine where you might want to fall under. All right? Any questions right now on any forms of the business? Yeah.
Can you delve out shares of limited liability company the same way you do?
No. So a corporation has, when you create a corporation, the ownership is with the shareholders. And depending on how you make the bylaws of the corporation, those shares can be transferred, they can be sold. I mean, they can only be sold through the corporation if it's a smaller corporation. With an LLC, the members of an LLC are called members, okay? They don't own shares. But in the operating agreement for the LLC, that's where it's set forth, kind of the profit sharing and expense sharing and requirements of how the money will be distributed in the LLC. So there isn't really shares, transferable shares in an LLC, because when you do that under an LLC, you often have to create a new operating agreement. So there's a little inflexibility in ownership transfer with an LLC that doesn't necessarily exist with a corporation. Any other questions? All right, let's talk a little bit about intellectual property. Okay? Intellectual property is often the lifeblood of a new business. Okay? When you're not actually manufacturing anything, when you don't have a product, a lot of times what you have is just the idea, right? That's the spark of business. That's the spark of entrepreneurship. Okay? And those ideas often translate into intellectual property. I've broken intellectual property down into kind of 4 major areas here: copyright, trademark, patents, and trade secrets. Talk about these all briefly. Okay? Copyright is essentially what allows you to own, to control, to monetize the expression of ideas, right? So for a musician, right, copyright is really important in terms of any songs that they compose, right? For an author, copyright is important for anything that the author writes. Copyright also covers other things such as art, so visual works, sculptures, architecture, choreography. These all fall within things that can be copyrighted, right? How many of you have copyrights in something? You actually probably all should be raising your hand, because copyright is kind of the one area of intellectual property where you don't have to do anything to get the right. Right? If you've ever created anything original and put it down into writing, or put it down on the paper, or saved it on a computer, you've got a copyright. You write a paper for class, you've got a copyright in that. Yeah. If you were 5 years old and you made a little finger painting for your mom and she put it on the refrigerator, you got a copyright in that. Yeah. You actually don't have to register a copyright in order to have it. Now, should you choose to register a copyright with the federal government, suddenly now you're going to get access to basically the enforcement mechanism of the federal government, okay? If you were to breach a copyright and you never registered it, you'd have to prove what the damage was, all right? So if somebody copied your 5-year-old, finger painting there, you'd have to go, well, I could have sold that for $1,000 and proven it to get your copyright infringement. However, when you register it with the federal government, automatically you're entitled to what we call minimum damages. You don't even have to prove it, but you can get $25,000 per instance of infringement, okay? So if you have something creative that you're developing as part of your business, there's some incentive there to register it with the Copyright Office, simply because you can get those damages in the future. Yeah.
Can you register photos?
Yeah, photographs are absolutely copyrightable. Yeah. Anything creative. Yeah. So other things that can be copyright that we often don't think about in a business standpoint, if you're going to be, let's say, contracting with somebody to make a graphic design for your company, or to make a website for your company, or to do some programming that needs to be done if you've got some special code, all right? You want to make sure in whatever contract you have with that person that they assign the copyright to you. Because the last thing you want to do is hire a creative artist as an independent contractor and forget to get the copyright for the things that you hired them for. Okay? Another pitfall that can happen with copyright is if you're sitting there going, ooh, I need to make an ad. I need to get something out there to advertise my business. So you just go onto Google and do an image search and you pick out something that looks really cool and make it in the background of your ad. Don't do that. Somebody's got the rights to that photo, and you may end up having to pay some royalties to someone else if you're being a little bit sloppy about using other people's copyright material. Okay? Trademark. All right. Now we're getting into the good stuff. All right. Trademark is intended to protect consumers. All right. So that there isn't any confusion in the market as to where a product comes from. That's literally what a trademark is for. All right. It's supposed to identify kind of the provenance of whatever's being manufactured. Trademarks can be words. Trademarks can be symbols. They can be phrases. All right. A trademark does need to be attached to a physical product, right? I've got an iPhone, I got a cover on it, but you would see the Apple logo on the back of every iPhone, right? They've got that trademarked, and they throw it onto their goods so that you know who made the goods. Okay? You can have what are also called service marks. So if you've got a company that doesn't actually produce a product, but provides a service, classic example, FedEx, right? They've got a trademark logo, they've got trademark slogans, they've got trademark phrases, okay? Trademarks do not expire unless you fail to renew them, all right? First time you apply for a trademark, you get it for 10 years from the federal government, okay? And you can renew it, and you can renew it forever, all right? Copyrights, they expire eventually, in a long time. 95 years if you're a corporation, or your life plus 70 years if you're an individual. That's how long copyrights last. All right? You don't have to worry about copyrights going away. Trademarks, though, you got to watch out for. Every 10 years, you got to make sure you renew them. And you've got to make sure that you're not so popular that the word itself becomes what we call genericized. Escalator. You guys know what those are, right? Yo-yos. Aspirin. These were all trademark names that the companies lost because everybody started referring to the thing as itself. That's why you may hear like on TV, right? Kleenex. Kleenex never calls themselves Kleenex. They call themselves Kleenex brand tissues because they don't want you to call those tissues Kleenex, because then Kleenex will become just a word, right? Google might be in danger of that right now, right? What do we say when we search something online? We Google it, right? We don't say we're using Google brand search engines. No. So Google has to protect their brand, all right? That's what trademarks are for, is protecting your brand, all right? You don't want there to be any confusion between you and anyone else. A classic trademark example, I showed you my phone, which was made by who? Apple, yeah. But what was Apple known for back in the 60s? Huh? No, Apple computers didn't exist in the 60s. But everybody in the 60s, if you mentioned the company Apple, they knew exactly who you were talking about, because they were the publishing company, the record company for the Beatles. And there actually was a lawsuit between Apple Records and Apple Computers back in the 80s, and they reached a settlement. And Apple Records is like, all right, Apple Computers, you can use Apple as long as you never get into the music industry. And then we're cool. And then what happened? Did Apple get into the music industry? Oh yeah, they did, right? They got the iPod, they got iTunes, now they have Apple Music. And there was a follow-up lawsuit between Apple Records and Apple Computers over breaching that original agreement, right? Because remember, trademark is about protecting brands and protecting consumer perception, right? And now we've got this kind of, gray area between Apple Records and Apple Computers as to, wait, which one's the music company now? And I haven't seen this check, but I've talked to somebody who has seen this check. And the settlement check that Apple Computers wrote to Apple Records in order to enter into the music industry without, any more complaints from Apple Records was the largest check this person had ever seen. It was 9 figures, sorry. Yeah. Shy of $1 billion, but over 100 million. There's a lot of money in trademark, okay? So you want to make sure you protect it. Now you don't have to register your trademark, okay? But if you register your trademark with the federal government, you now have rights to that name throughout the United States, okay? If you don't do it, and you just have a local business, and somebody else elsewhere in the country thinks of your name as well, just independently, you're going to have a fight on your hands, okay? Particularly if they get the registration first. So protect your branding. Branding is important. Patents, okay? Patents are a way to protect inventions, okay? So copyright protects expression of ideas, trademark protects your brand. Now we're talking about things that you're making, that are new, that are novel, that are innovative, okay? If you get a patent though, in order to get a patent from the federal government, you have to disclose it. Okay, you have to apply for it, you have to explain exactly what you've invented. And you only get patent rights if it's granted to you for 20 years. And then they're gone. Then they expire. And you can't license them anymore. Anybody can go out and use your invention. Okay? But patents can be valuable. Right? So if you've got an idea on a new way to do anything, okay, you'll want to talk to a patent attorney. You'll want to see what's out there in terms of existing inventions. And for patents and trademarks, I'm going to give a plug here to the Durango Public Library. Down there, they've got a patent and trademark resource center. Okay? There's less than 50 of these in the United States. They're basically pseudo branches of the Patent and Trademark Office. And we've got librarians at our public library who have been specifically trained in how to search through patent records and how to search through trademark records. So if you have something, if you've got an invention, a product that you think will eventually qualify for patent protection, go down there and talk to them. I mean, I can help you here, but they've actually got all the software and the access to the databases that we don't literally have here on campus. And they are dying to meet you all. They would love to do that. They're very helpful. So,
Durango Public Library.
Durango Public Library. It's absolutely free. You can just drop in, or you can call them and make an appointment, and they can do some one-on-one research with you. Patents can protect basically three things, okay? There's what we call a utility patent. This is what we typically think of as a patent. It's an invention, something that you've created. We also have things that are called design patents, which are very close to copyrighted things, except we can actually get the exclusive use of them. So, anybody ever see the movie Batman with his, pretty cool hooded mask? The artist who did that mask got a design patent on the mask. Okay? It's there to kind of protect packaging or the look or the dress or the appearance of something. So it's not as useful as, say, a utility patent where you're making something, but you can find a way to protect maybe unique packaging that otherwise wouldn't be available. Third kind of patent is called a plant patent. You can actually patent plants. Okay?
Who in Colorado has the most of those?
Yeah.
Anyone know? Can you guess?
Won't say.
That's a good guess. But Colorado State University.
Yep. Probably won't last that long once we get nationally legalized marijuana. Because I guarantee you, once marijuana is legalized nationally, the number of plant patents on marijuana strains is going to go through the roof. Yeah. People are just waiting. Yeah. But that's what patents are good for, protecting those inventions. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about are trade secrets. Okay? Copyright, trademark, patents, these are all things regulated by the federal government that you can register with them, that you can disclose. You never, ever, ever want to disclose a trade secret. All right? A trade secret is something that has value because no one else knows it. Okay? Anytime we want to protect something as a trade secret, there's a little bit of a gamble involved. Okay? Because you can reverse engineer something if it's a trade secret. You can work backwards and figure it out. But there are a lot of very valuable trade secrets out there. Anybody know what the most valuable trade secret is right now? Just a guess.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Yeah. The formula for Coca-Cola. All right. It's been essentially the same or very protected for over 100 years. Okay? Very few people know exactly what goes into Coke and in what ratios. Okay? It's a highly protected trade secret.
I've heard that there were several different recipes for it, depending on where you're at in the United States.
Not just the US, but also around the world. Yeah, they do change the formulation to kind of go with, local tastes and local preferences. Interesting thing about Coke, though, because with trade secrets, you normally don't want to disclose it. But if you do, if there's a requirement, right, if you have a business reason for doing it, then you want to sign somebody to a non-disclosure agreement. Using Coke as an example. Coke is kosher. Did you know this? Yeah. Now, do you know what it takes in order for a processed, manufactured food to be kosher? A rabbi has to oversee every step of the process. They have to inspect all the ingredients, they have to know what goes into it, they have to see how it's made in order for the rabbi to certify it as being kosher. Which means Coke had to bring in a rabbi, have the rabbi sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then the rabbi could watch every step of the process and see every ingredient. And the rabbi did that. The rabbi certified Coke as being produced in accordance with Talmudic law, and Coke is kosher. Why would Coke want to be kosher? Yeah, because they don't want to lose the sales, right? It's all about money. But that's how you protect a trade secret, all right? You don't let anybody know what it is, all right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. How many herbs and spices they got? Was it 12, right? They got a secret recipe of 12 herbs and spices. I think 7 of them are salt. But yeah, you can laugh, it's okay. Yeah. Another trade secret, Google's search algorithm, all right? Larry Page and Sergey Brin, when they originally started Google, their first search algorithm, they got a patent on. You can look it up. You can go see exactly how the original Google search algorithm crawled the web and figured out how to give you results based on relevance. But then they realized, wait a minute, if every time we come up with a new iteration or a new improvement to the search algorithm, we patent it, somebody's going to figure it out, right? They're going to improve on it themselves. So after that first patent, everything else with Google is now protected as a trade secret. Nobody knows exactly how their algorithm works and how it rates things. Yeah. Another classic trade secret, the New York Times bestseller list. The New York Times has never disclosed how they actually figure out what book's number 1, what book's number 2. Yeah. They weight it somehow, but we don't know. So things like that are protectable as trade secrets. So a lot of times, we talk about having these ideas and having these concepts and going, how can I protect it using copyright, trademark, or patents? But maybe sometimes we just want to not tell anybody how to do what we do. Okay? Any questions on kind of these 4 big areas of intellectual property? Yeah.
What's the difference between a trademark and a trade name?
Ooh! Not a lot, actually. Yeah. So a trademark, right, we kind of use as a general, I would say, catch-all for trademarks, for service marks. Trade names is what you do business under. Now there's other ways that we can use the word trade name in the law, where a trade name is almost what we would call a doing business as. So that would kind of go back to our form of a business. So if we're a partnership or something, or let's say we're a corporation, a limited liability company, but we want to do business under a different name. So we have, let me give you an example. You guys, have you ever heard of the company Philip Morris? They're not around anymore. They're a tobacco company, and they got a lot of bad publicity back in the 80s because who knew cigarettes cause cancer? I know, shocking. So they changed their name to, I think it was Alteris, okay? But is there a cigarette out there called Alteris? No, right? So it's Alteris doing business as Marlboro. It's Alteris doing business as Virginia Slims. So Marlboro and Virginia Slims, if they're doing business as those companies, that's kind of a trade name. And there's also trademarks associated with those names. Yeah. If you're an individual and let's say I open up a plumbing company and I want to call it Ace Plumbing. Well, my name's not Ace, certainly not Ace Plumbing, but I'd file a, what we call a fictitious business name statement, and I would be Eric Prosser doing business as Ace Plumbing. Okay, that'd be what we could also call a trade name. So the trademark is what we get from the government. The trade name is kind of how we're holding ourselves out there. It could be a trademark, but it could also just be a name that we're using for our business. Good question. Any other questions about any of these? Yeah.
So other than, I guess the journal library, how would you go about trademarking something, patenting it, other than what you mentioned?
Okay, so if you're gonna patent something, I almost always recommend go get a patent lawyer. They're pricey, they're expensive, but they're worth it. Because getting a patent is a long, involved Byzantine process. There are a lot of kind of archaic rules, making sure you get all the I's dotted and T's crossed. Patent attorneys are great for that. Now, a trademark, I still recommend you go see an attorney, but if you wanted to save some money, the trademark's the place to save the money on. The trademark system is fairly easy to search, particularly if you get the help down at the public library. They actually, they came up with a search algorithm pre-Google Images where basically every trademark's classified. So not just based on the words that are in it, but based on what the image contains. And it's really easy to search actually, once you get used to it. So with a trademark, it's fairly easy to process on your own because you're literally just kind of making the artwork, giving the description, sending that into the feds, and they're over with it. Patents, the federal government actually examines. So getting a patent is a far more rigorous process than getting a trademark. Okay? But again, yeah, if you just go down to the public library there, or you can come talk to me too, and I can give you some pointers as well. But I would probably give you some pointers and then send you down there. Yeah. All right. Any other questions on intellectual property?
So for a logo, what would be the best one to go about?
So if it's a logo, right, a logo is going to be a trademark. Yeah.
Trademark or copyright?
Trademark, right? I mean, a logo itself, if you're designing it, right, there is a copyright element to it. But the thing is, if you want it to be associated with your brand and your company, it is a trademark. All right, let's talk about risk real quick. So we want to manage risk, all right? As businesses, there's opportunity in risk, but we don't like risk that's uncontrolled, right? There's known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. We don't like those unknown unknowns. It's horrible for us, right? So one of the easiest ways that you can manage your risk is through insurance, okay? You will want to make friends with an insurance broker. You will want to hire one. You will want to get your insurance through one because they are familiar with business needs, okay? One of the big things that insurance is going to cover for you is not just covering damages, but a lot of commercial general liability insurance will hire an attorney for you, all right? Legal expenses in the United States are amazing. They're up there, okay? How many of you actually have an insurance policy that'll hire an attorney for you? Let me ask you this, how many of you have car insurance? You've got an insurance policy that will hire an attorney for you. Yeah, you probably never read it, but actually in your car insurance policy, there's a standard clause in there that if you're sued for something arising in your operation of the vehicle, they'll hire the attorney to defend you. Yeah?
That only deals with the car, though, doesn't deal with the company.
Right, so that's the car, right? But I'm just saying, you've all got that insurance right now, so for your company, yeah.
What about if it's like health insurance? Do I have to be injured first to have the insurance?
Yeah, so health insurance is a different type of coverage, all right? I won't go into too much detail in the exciting world of insurance law. But health insurance is often what we call first-party coverage, meaning it covers you. Liability insurance, such as your auto insurance, such as commercial general liability insurance that you can get for your business, is often what's called third-party insurance, where it's protecting you against injuries that have happened to other people.
Now, what if I, per se, want to do something that might involve risk? Could I approach my health insurance to get an insurance attorney to figure out what would be the best plan?
Probably not. You will want to go to an insurance broker who deals with business insurance. Yeah. So there are a number of type of policies that you can get out there. One thing that you may actually someday encounter in business, if you're doing business with contracting with another company, they may ask you to provide what's called an additional insured endorsement. And you're like, what is that? Again, if you called up your insurance broker and said, I got this thing that says I need an additional insured endorsement, probably 5 minutes later they'll fax one over to you. Okay. You can protect yourself from a lot of liability through insurance, okay? So I always recommend exploring that, talking to an insurance broker, okay? If you're going to have employees, you absolutely want to get workers' compensation insurance, okay? Because if you have workers' compensation insurance, your workers cannot sue you for injuries on the job. The exclusive remedy, the only thing they can go after is that coverage. But if you don't have coverage, the sky's the limit.
What was it going in?
Workers' compensation insurance. So if you're hiring an employee, you want that, you need that. You can also manage your risk through contracts, okay? NDAs, what I have up there, those are non-disclosure agreements. That goes back to what I was talking about with trade secrets and intellectual property, okay? If you're bringing in investors or potential investors, have them sign an NDA. Last thing you want to do is have an idea, start looking for investors, and then you forget to protect your idea and now they've got it. Okay? Anyone you share your idea with, before you've got it going, before you've got the official protections in place, have a little NDA. You can find those online. There's plenty of them. Talk to an attorney too. Obviously talk to an attorney. There's a lot of NDAs online. You can just Google it. Sorry, Google brand search engine. Right? Now, attorney's fees. Something we don't often think about, but in the United States, unless you've got a law or a contract that allows you to collect your attorney's fees from the other side in a lawsuit, you are not going to be collecting your attorney's fees. You're going to be paying for them yourself. Okay? Any contract that you have, you're going to want to probably have an attorney fees provision in there. Why? Because that will mitigate your loss if it comes to the worst case scenario, which is a lawsuit. All right? I know I talk about lawsuits a lot, but that's what lawyers do. Okay? When we start a business, when we begin a partnership, at the beginning of anything, we're always in a good mood. Nothing's ever going to go wrong, right? We're going to make millions of dollars with this idea, okay? But at the beginning of a relationship, that's when you want to get these things in writing that are going to protect about if it goes bad. Ideally, it won't go bad, but if it does, you want those mechanisms in place at the beginning, okay? Lawyers are paid to be pessimists. That's why lawyers die young of heart attacks, because they're always looking at the bad side of life, okay? Finally, another way to manage risks, get a good accountant. Stay on top of your taxes, okay? Do not try to mess with the IRS. Don't try to mess with the County Board of Taxation, okay? Governments are really good about finding money and going after money they think they're owed, okay? Don't mess with your employees' salaries. Yeah. If you're ever going to do anything bad, those are the things not to do things badly. Yeah.
So, it's great advice. Now, let's say you're a young entrepreneur. They're heeding your warning. They want to go find a good accountant. They want to go find a good lawyer. Obviously, they're going to be concerned about value and price. But also, can you sort of suggest where they can look for actually find an individual that might be able to help them serve their needs, find matches? Where do they look to find these individuals?
Yeah, great question. So, lots of resources. I mean, the obvious, simple answer is Google it, but no, you don't want to just do that, right? Because then you're basically at that point an uninformed consumer, okay? If you're looking for an attorney, most local bar organizations actually have referral programs. So you can call them up, explain to them what your legal needs are, and they will recommend 3, 4, 5 local attorneys that you can meet with. Often attorneys that work through a referral program with the Bar Association do not charge an initial consultation fee. Yeah, you'll get 30 minutes, 60 minutes of their time for free so that you can feel them out, see if it's a good working relationship. Also, other ways to find good accountants, good tax people, talk to other business people in the area. See who they're using. get involved in local, roundtables. I did a talk recently on intellectual property for the Durango Chamber of Commerce, okay? Talk to the people who are doing business in that community, see who they're who are they using, who are they recommending, right? Use that networking, use that ability to find people. Yeah.
So the bar organization referral list?
Yeah.
Could you find someone for insurance as well as contracts and that?
For insurance law, yes, but if you're looking for an insurance broker, that'd always be the same way as,
Would they be able to do the
Who's
same
using
thing
the
with
accounts?
60 minutes for free or feel them out?
Oh, insurance brokers usually don't charge for their time. They make their money off of commission and, selling you policies. Yeah. Good question. All right, so we've got, I'd say 10 minutes left here. Do you guys have any just kind of general questions for me? Anything about anything we've talked about? Because that's kind of my quick and dirty introduction to legal issues you need to be thinking about.
If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Best way, poke your head in my office. It's Reed Library 106. You can shoot me an email, ejprosser@fortlewis.edu. But if I'm not in class somewhere, I'm usually in or near my office.
Any questions? No? Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.